All right. So welcome to the GUAC maintenance weekly meeting. This call is being recorded. It will be put online. Participation in the call is in accordance with open LF antitrust policies as well as open SSF code of conduct policies. Cool. Are they chatting for now? Let me ping Santiago and see whether he's gonna be around. Give me a sec. What were you all chatting about?
So just Trustify stuff. Yeah, basically, yeah. I was out most of the week, so there was not much of the progress of anything. I plan to work this week on the setting up the proper governance for the repos and for projects. So I'll push some PRs in that area.
Awesome.
Just try to define things and roles and everything. That's where we stopped. And we discussed a little bit planning for the upstream releases of Trustify in GitHub. So that's where we are.
Awesome. I just looked at the thread. It looks like Santiago said that he has something he can't schedule. We can't reschedule, so he asked to do next week instead for the identifier work that he's been doing. Yeah. If not, let me just check in on our schedule. Brent, did you have something that you wanted to bring up, or just saying hi?
No, just stopping by. Mainly planning to eventually come back around to more air gap discussions, but vacation and traveling put a hitch in that. So I'll be trying to revisit that, kind of create more of a strategy and see what people think.
Awesome. Cool. So I don't think we have anything else on the agenda. I have a topic I wanted to ask folks about, but I wanted to see whether there was anything else that folks want to talk about.
Do you want at some point? Doesn't have to be today to talk about this response to the SBOM minimum SBOM elements that we discussed a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder, are you guys doing anything on the Red Hat side as well for that?
I'm not sure really. Peter, do you know?
Okay.
I mean, we can loop in more people that are more on the producing side of SBOMs than we are generally.
I think
But
that's
it
fine.
will take a little bit more time.
Yeah, I think that's fine. We can do our own. Yeah, I wanted to see whether there's any. I know we have a couple of things already drafted on our side. I want to make sure if we just don't have like too much overlap. Yeah, I think we had a few points. I think we can. Let me copy it up here. I think there was one major thing that was brought up where something is not expressible yet, right? Which one was this? Too late.
maybe
contacts.
that field about known missing tendency or something like that. What it's called? Is that one or known unknowns?
Known unknowns. Wait, I feel like that was more.
There's something in the note. The other.
I remember this question being like there was a field which isn't present in some of the specs today, so we need to get that in, right? Generation contacts, was it? Unknown. Okay, so I guess like there's a category of things that are not currently expressible or easy to express in current specifications, right? So one is known unknowns, or transitive dependency state status, generation context. I don't think. I think we talked about the distribution element also. But I can't share my screen, but I'm looking at the notes in which we had I copied the list of things down there. There was a discussion about. Oh, I think that's more internal though. So I think the three categories I try to bucket into is like things that are not currently expressible, easy to express with current specifications. Things about distributions and things that we agree are in the right direction in the new minimal elements document. So things that I think the things that we agree are good. We said licensing is good. Having the tool name is important. That's good. That's added in. I think we say hashes are also good. That's a good addition to the minimum elements. I think those are the three things. And then the distribution element, basically, we just said that this is a problem that needs to be. It's good to be able to make SBOMs as distributable as possible. And I think we kind of hinted at there being a distribution kind of specification that needs to be, a distribution mechanism, that needs to be there. To make sharing our SBOMs easier. And things that are not currently expressible or not easy to express within current specs is known unknowns, transitive dependency status. So whether when you say depend on something, whether it's direct or indirect, or maybe you don't know. All right. And also generation context. So like, was this S1 generated from a builder, from an analysis, and so on. You remember which known unknowns were the issue?
Yeah, just not sure how to express that we are as far as I read it, it says that we should treat every SBOM as incomplete, right? And then the publishers can mark it as complete, and can mark things that are on purpose excluded from the SBOM. So things that are to notify people that yeah, for sure there are things that are there but not listed for security reasons or whatever else.
Oh, you're talking about the we want to say it's like confidential and like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't wanna,
yeah, yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we can keep it short then, like if that's like the list of things that we have. We had the discussion at the timestamp, but I don't think we were in. I don't think we were fully agreed exactly whether there was a recommendation there, because it seemed like a very specific to implementation of the system consuming it also. I think we did say that like SBOMs should be immutable in distribution, so that you know when you knew the information. You know, it's just something that resounds with our discussion. I think this was like the historical record of SBOMs, right? So like, if a new SBOM is released, you update the information, or a new vulnerability is found, but then it doesn't mean that like you knew about this vulnerability like 2 weeks ago when you had this, right? This is like new information. Okay. Any other information?
I think that's good.
Cool. All right, let's keep it short then. I feel like I'd be willing to put this through AI to kind of like write up something with our notes. But if anyone wants to kind of write it up also, feel free.
Let Gemini do it.
Okay, we'll let Gemini do it. Cool. I think the deadline is like in a few days. So I'm gonna create a draft, put it in the Slack channel, and hopefully everyone can review it, and then we'll send it in. Cool. Awesome. Let's see. I had a question. Kind of wanted to see whether you all run into this issue also. We have like multiple systems within. This is going back to like supply chain metadata and collecting it and putting it all in one place, right? Like we have a lot of different teams. They all use different infrastructure. That isn't necessarily like, they use their own build tools, or various build tools. Some of them have their own scanning pipelines and stuff like that, right? Trying to figure out what the best way to integrate all that is, because a lot of these systems don't necessarily like produce well, some of them produce artifacts and attestations, but they don't flow into the it takes work to like make them flow in the correct direction, right? But a lot of these teams already kind of like have their own dashboards, have their own view of their system, right? I think I'm trying to figure out, maybe there's these databases already that I'm kind of wondering, like, is there a similar problem where like there are teams that already maintain their own version of like their security metadata, and like for us, I feel like each team has like the cloud team has their own, like Chrome and Android have their own, and then we have to kind of. I think now we're thinking, okay, instead of like making them create these attestations and all these documents and putting it in, we need to be able to understand and interpret their schema and data and then import it into the ones that we are familiar with.
I think it's more centralized in Reckitt, at least as far as I know. So there's a product security team and we are mostly doing SBOMs and advisories. So I'm not sure about. So what I mean, but by other attestation metadata. So
So like vulnerability scans, I would say, are one of them. But I think in the sense of like, I think we have source, and then it goes through builder, and then it creates the artifact. The artifact gets uploaded somewhere. When we see SBOMs, we see, okay, maybe artifact association. But then, if we want to say, oh, we want to be able to, the team wants to understand what their vulnerability, like let's say they want to meet FedRAMP requirements, right? So I need to make sure my vulnerabilities all get remediated within 90 days per compliance standards. So they set up their own system, like maybe they buy Sneak or something, or some other product, and say, okay, I'm gonna do this. And they have it integrated into their system, right? So like they have a bug dashboard, they have a vulnerability dashboard that will tell them all the information. And then we have like a different team that's like
completely different tool,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like I don't think these tools necessarily like create rigidly exportable
Yeah, results.
data. Yeah.
Mm.
But like it's weird, right? Because like these teams care about their own posture. There is like a kind of more fleet-wide, like organizational across the board. You want to understand the different products that you have, or like individual teams have their own tooling, but you still want to understand the overall picture, right? I'm kind of wondering, right? Because maybe this is like a Google specific thing where like the tooling is everywhere, but I imagine that I wonder
Think it's not.
whether
I think it's not, but yeah, I don't have any good experience with it as well. Yeah, I think it's normal. What you say, like any bigger company, there it will it will have multiple things. We have two things in my head. So one is the TP Plastify, another is the ACS, Advanced Cluster Manager. That's mostly runtime scanning of the containers in a cluster.
so
And
it's like yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead.
So I'm kind of wondering, right? Like Trustify handles like the SBOM and like maybe you connect it to the CI and stuff like that. And then you have the ACS data, but then like the ideal flow is like ACS picks something up and then you can figure out from the SBOM or the build provenance that like, oh, this is a source repository that you need to remediate and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
But these two systems are like different systems now.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like we do want to be able to join that data together, right? Like, or you have a runtime that is running an artifact, but you have an SBOM for it, which may be more accurate, right? Then if you're doing
Yeah.
runtime scanning, you may not find something, or maybe the false positive rate is high or false negative rate is high.
But also like what vulnerability database are you using? So yeah, I think it will come up sooner or later. Like, why am I seeing this here and this there? So, but yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's a
then,
struggle that we have.
yeah. But
But
but maybe one of the solution is that the each team could be able to provide like a WAX document or kind of an advisory for their product with tools that they be using. So like at this point, this is the vulnerabilities that we know of and share that as a vulnerability exchange, right? WAX WAX file. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And treat so it's not only for the customers but also for other teams as well, right? So this is what we know at this point. Just thinking out loud now, right?
yeah. So kind of like an API that you can query and be like, oh, do I know if
Well, no, just generate the CSAF file or OpenWX file,
yeah.
which can be then distributed.
Yeah, it's funny because we're talking to Martin about that, the Vex distribution spec. um, yeah, there's quite a bit of interest in so me and another the product manager's Chow, we're in talks with a few other vendors like Microsoft. Red Hat is actually also involved in that discussion. I think a different group of people. Cisco, Amazon, and I think like we all come back to the same, like we don't have a good way to distribute the BEX information.
Mm,
because it's always changing, right? It's not like S bombs or something. Where you put it once, there it's probably not going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this one also, I think we are talking about inventory as well, right? It's like what's running, like we've kind of looked at it from, we kind of ignored the runtime problem for a while, right? Which kind of said like, oh, I'm gonna care about things within my supply chain, and then the deployment of things from my supply chain is when we kind of like didn't kind of like deferred the problem because it's very hard. But I'm wondering whether there has been, even if we don't talk about the runtime issue, right? Like how is Trustify going to be able to take in like external scans as well?
It well, yeah. Only if they're like at the moment we can just accept CSAF and OSV documents. So, but but
So are you hoping that the scanners will produce those documents and then you'll be able to consume it?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that it should be a direct API for these kind of things? I mean, how would how the scan results differs from the VEX file, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would be? We don't have that
It's
concept
weird.
at the moment. Yeah.
We have like kind of a it's weird, right? Because I feel like Vex is a bit overloaded also. It's like CSAF will act as a vulnerability report, right? But Vex is just like the add-on on top of that to say whether you're not affected by something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But CSAF also acts as like, here are things that okay. Okay, yeah, so maybe we just make CSAF like the standard. All scanners should.
I'm not saying it's a it's a perfect tool, but yeah, we didn't dig into anything else really. CSAF is a little bit too generalized for my taste. Like you can do anything.
Is it easy to is there a lot of ambiguity when you consume the data that you okay?
Yeah, you can yeah. Especially like how the products and components are done. So it's all super flexible, and then you can imagine what you can find inside. Yeah.
Is there like a canonical product hierarchy that you have? Like
We try to impose it recently. So that's I think the one of the next steps for Trustify to actually try to embrace the concept of product as like a first level entity. So not just SBOM, but this is like Chrome, and Chrome has these kind of versions and distributions, and these versions are described by these SBOMs. Because what we see is that people will more care about it than like a particular SBOM. They want to track their own product, right? And people are also saying that like we want to have like multiple SBOMs defining one product version. So say like you have a backend and the front end team and things like that. So that's all maybe built by different tools and different teams. So it's all one product. So
I wonder whether you like. I wonder whether it makes sense to have like a product registrar.
Yeah. We have something. I don't think I would be able to find it right now, but I can try to find it and send it to you. But it's nothing. Yeah, one thing that's so there's a one thing that I'm aware of. It's a CP dictionary, which is
OCP dictionary.
used in CSAF a lot, like in CSAF land.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things I would like to take a look at and see if we can include. But it looks a little bit dated.
Oh, interesting. I actually one of the issues that came out with CPEs was also like when I was chatting with the Chrome team, they can't use the CPEs in the SBOMs because you only get a CPE when you get a vulnerability. So they they can't actually express
Mm-mm.
some of these. Hey, let's talk about this next week because I think we're going to talk about identifier stuff.
Yeah. So I can search up a little bit about
Yeah, but yeah,
what's
the
done
product
in
identifier.
Red Hat and what are the plans by the product security team and how things will look, and then yeah, we can talk
Okay,
about it.
cool. All right. Well, thank you for indulging. This has been a good group therapy session.
We all need one from time to time, yeah.
Cool. Anything else that we want to chat about? If not, we can.
Yeah, take care.
Cool. So, all right, I'll take the time to write up the SQL minimum requirement stuff then.